It feels like everywhere you look these days, someone is trying to sell you a map to find yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Everywhere.
Like you've got personality tests, silent retreats, um, personal branding courses. There are just thousands of self-help books out there.
Yeah, it's a massive industry.
Right. It's this entire cultural obsession with pinpointing exactly who you are, what your specific boundaries should be, and, carving out your unique identity.
Which is what we're all taught to do, right?
Exactly. But what if that entire approach is actually pointing us in the exact wrong direction?
That is the big question.
Like, what if the only way to truly find yourself is to completely, utterly, and intentionally lose yourself?
It is a radically counterintuitive premise. I mean, really.
Huh.
We spend decades, literally decades, and massive amounts of psychological energy building up this construct of the self.
Oh, yeah, curating it on social media and everything.
Right. We curate it, we defend it fiercely. So the idea of just intentionally dismantling it, well, it feels terrifying to most people.
Because it feels like you just disappear.
Exactly. It feels like if you did that, you'd be left with nothing, just a void.
Which perfectly brings us to our mission for today's deep dive. We have this fascinating translated philosophical essay on the docket today.
It really is a unique piece of writing.
Yeah, it's by a writer named Sue Feng, and it's titled Selflessness is the Advanced State of Life.
Capital L-I-F-E.
Right. And we are going to really dig into this because Xue Feng argues that shedding this concept of the self is absolutely not about becoming a blank slate
No, not at all.
or, disappearing into nothingness.
Hmm.
He claims it's actually the ultimate shortcut to experiencing life at its absolute peak.
The highest possible state.
So, okay, let's unpack this because I
Okay.
need to understand the actual mechanics of how abandoning my identity actually makes my life better.
Well, it is a brilliant philosophy to explore because Xu Feng doesn't just leave it in the realm of, high-minded ethereal spirituality.
Right, it's not just sitting on a mountaintop.
Exactly. He takes these incredibly lofty concepts and repeatedly smashes them against surprisingly gritty, uncomfortable, everyday reality.
Which I love.
Yeah, it's a philosophy that has to survive the morning commute or, dealing with frustrating coworkers and just the sheer exhaustion of being a human being.
And he starts by pulling absolutely zero punches,
Mm.
like right out of the gate.
Oh, he goes straight for it.
Yeah, to define what this state of complete selflessness actually feels like. This state where the heart is suddenly open, the spirit is entirely free.
What he calls entering the Elysium world.
Right, or the blooming of divinity.
Yeah.
He goes straight to a very visceral, physical example to ground it.
The most physical example possible, really.
Yeah, he points directly to the experience of sexual climax.
He uses that specific peak sensation as the ultimate verifying proof of his whole insight.
Which is quite a way to start an essay.
It is because if you analyze that exact moment, the physical scene essentially vanishes. You transcend conventional bodily sensation entirely.
You're just like out of your body.
Right. And for a fleeting second, you enter into a completely non-material, purely spiritual state. The ego just evaporates.
There is only an experience of infinite beauty in that moment.
Precisely.
But, okay, reading that, I immediately hit a wall of logic. I have to ask this on behalf of anyone listening who is trying to track the actual mechanics of this state.
Sure, lay it on me.
If I have completely lost my sense of self,
Oh.
right? If my ego is totally gone in that moment, then who exactly is experiencing this infinite beauty?
It's a great question.
Because if there's no me there, who is feeling the joy?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the philosophy addresses that exact paradox. Xu Feng's answer is that it is the true self experiencing it.
The true self.
Yeah, he draws a very hard, distinct line between the everyday, ego-driven self that we carry around.
The one that gets annoyed in traffic.
Exactly, the one that stresses about unanswered emails, cares about social status, gets offended by a perceived slight. He separates that from our true self.
So the argument is that the true self is sort of buried underneath all that ego management.
Precisely. The core argument is that the true self can only be found in selflessness.
Oh,
The everyday ego self has to get entirely out of the way. It has to shut down completely for the true self to finally emerge and actually experience that peak state of existence.
It's almost like the everyday self is just loud, obnoxious static on a radio.
That's a great analogy.
And when you finally tune it out, when you turn that static down to zero, you suddenly hear the actual music that was playing underneath the whole time.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. And what makes this essay so compelling is that it doesn't just confine this concept to physical or meditative peaks.
Right, it moves into the real world.
Yeah, it immediately stretches the idea into how we operate intellectually and professionally. Xu Feng makes a sweeping claim about human achievement.
Specifically pointing to Nobel Prize winners, which I thought was wild.
It is a bold claim.
He claims that any Nobel Prize winner in the world, during the exact period of their greatest discovery, absolutely had to be in a state of selflessness.
Yeah.
That it's literally the only conceivable way to discover the profound mysteries of the universe.
He frames it as entering the spiritual light. The logic being that if you are approaching a complex problem with your ego intact,
Like worrying about your legacy or something.
exactly, worrying about your funding or trying to force the data to fit a theory that will make you famous, if you do that, your vision is clouded.
Because you're in the way.
Right. You are filtering reality through the lens of your own desires.
Ah, okay. So dropping the self removes the filter.
Exactly. When the ego vanishes, you aren't trying to impose your will on the universe anymore. You are finally just observing the universe as it actually is.
And that's where the breakthrough happens.
That's the only place it can happen, according to Xu Feng.
That makes a lot of sense. And to illustrate this, the essay strings together these incredibly beautiful maxims.
The phrasing is very poetic.
Yeah. Xu Feng writes, the most exquisite swordsmanship is without a sword.
Which sounds like a movie quote.
It does. And then he says, management is no management. Possession is non-possession. And communication is Zen.
Yes.
He even links this to Shakyamuni Buddha's highest subtle method of no form of self. He says that's the key to entering this peak state.
Right, the method of no form.
But wait, before we just gloss over that, explain the Buddha reference for a second.
Yeah.
What does no form of self actually mean in practice?
Well, it really comes down to stripping away the labels we use to define our reality.
Job titles and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. In Buddhist philosophy, the self is essentially a collection of labels and forms. I am a manager, I am successful, I am injured.
Okay.
The method of no form is the practice of recognizing that those labels are just illusions.
So you stop believing your own hype.
Right. When you stop clinging to the form of who you think you are, you stop suffering when that form is threatened or changes, you become entirely adaptable.
Got it. Now, to bring this down to ground level for a second, because most of you listening probably aren't wielding ancient swords or discovering new isotopes in a lab.
Probably not.
It instantly reminded me of the flow state in sports or music.
Oh, the flow state is probably the most common modern experience of this exact phenomenon.
Right. Think about an athlete who has practiced a free throw, like 10,000 times.
Muscle memory is locked in.
Yeah. When they are in the championship game, if their self is present on the court, like if they are thinking, I need to bend my knees, I really need to impress this scout, what if I miss and everyone hates me?
Then they choke.
Exactly. They choke.
Yeah.
The ego physically ruins the performance by introducing anxiety and tension.
Because the self creates friction.
But when they're in the flow state, the thinking, anxious brain shuts off completely. The self vanishes. They aren't thinking, they're just doing.
And that ties perfectly into Xu Feng's idea of management is no management.
Oh, how so?
Well, when you stop micromanaging a team to protect your own ego as a boss, when you stop needing to prove you are the smartest person in the room, the team actually thrives.
Because you get out of their way.
Right. By investing yourself in a task with total self-forgetfulness, the essay suggests you find endless joy. The self isn't the driver of remarkable achievement. It is actually the primary obstacle.
Wow. Whereas, if you have a strong, active sense of self, Xu Feng notes that even the simplest things become massive burdens.
They really do.
He points out that with a sense of self, even lying flat, like just doing absolutely nothing, is a form of suffering.
Which is such a modern problem.
It hits incredibly close to home. If your ego is highly active, you can't even relax on the couch on a Sunday afternoon without feeling guilty.
Or agonizing over your productivity.
Exactly. Or compare your weekend to someone else's on social media.
Because the ego is a machine that demands constant maintenance, validation, and defense. It never clocks out.
Never.
So we've looked at these peak physical experiences and the heights of creative or professional achievement. But this is where the philosophy takes a sharp turn into what we might call the ultimate stress test.
The daily grind.
Right. How does this hold up when you are just thoroughly, utterly annoyed?
Yeah. Xu Feng gives us two highly specific, mundane scenarios that I know everyone listening will have a visceral reaction to.
They are very relatable.
First, the workplace. Imagine you are working alongside an extremely selfish person.
We all know one.
Oh, definitely. They take the credit, they shirk the work, they manipulate the boss. Usually, when dealing with this person, you sit there and calculate your own gains and losses.
Of course you do.
You think, why am I doing all the heavy lifting while they get the praise?
Yeah.
And you just become infuriated.
And here is the brutal, uncompromising diagnosis the philosophy offers. The only reason you are infuriated by their selfishness is because you are also selfish.
Ouch.
Yeah. You have a self, your ego is keeping a scorecard. If you didn't have a self, there would be no infuriation.
And the solution offered is wild. Xu Feng essentially says, achieve selflessness, satisfy that selfish person's every desire, give them all the benefits, step aside, and the atmosphere will suddenly become harmonious.
It's quite the instruction.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because I read that and immediately threw my hands up.
I think most people would.
I'm sure you, listening right now, are doing the exact same thing. Isn't that just being a total doormat?
It sounds like it initially.
Like, aren't you just letting the office jerk walk all over you while they get the promotion and you get left behind?
It is the completely natural reaction to have. Your ego is immediately screaming, that's not fair.
Because it isn't.
But we have to look closely at how Kui Feng is redefining the concepts of winning and losing. He isn't advocating for submission or being a victim.
Okay.
He is talking about the literal mechanics of friction. Think about it physically. Friction requires two surfaces rubbing aggressively against each other.
Right, so the selfish coworker is one surface. And my ego demanding fairness is the other surface.
Exactly. If you completely remove yourself from the equation, your need for credit, your ego's demand for workplace justice in that specific moment.
You remove one of the surfaces.
Yes. And the friction physically cannot exist anymore.
Okay, I see the logic of the friction disappearing. But let's push on this.
Let's do it.
Let's say I remove my surface. I drop my ego. The friction is gone. The atmosphere is harmonious. But that selfish coworker still gets a promotion, and I still get stuck with the grunt work.
Yeah.
How is that a win for me?
Because you have to ask yourself what the actual goal of your life is. Is the goal to win a corporate title at the cost of chronic stress, anger, and a miserable daily existence?
Yeah, no.
Or is the role to move through life with a free spirit and an open heart? Xu Feng is arguing that you aren't losing a battle because you are completely refusing to step onto the battlefield in the first place.
You just walk away.
You are opting out of their game. The harmony he talks about isn't the harmony of cosmic justice. It's the internal harmony of zero resistance.
Oh, that's interesting.
Your true self remains entirely untouched, unbothered, and free while they spend their lives desperately clawing for external validation.
That is a profound reframing. It's not, I am surrendering to you. It's, I am removing the target you are trying to hit. You can swing all you want, but you are just punching air.
Such a good way to put it.
The second stress test scenario he offers is just as challenging, maybe even more so because it's so intimate.
It's a very heavy topic.
Yeah, it's about caregiving. Specifically, taking care of a long-term patient who can't care for themselves and, crucially, is totally unreasonable and demanding.
A situation that causes profound emotional and physical burnout for millions of people.
Right. And Xie Feng argues that if you have a self in that situation, like if your internal monologue is constantly running, thinking about how unfair this is to you.
How much of your youth or your free time is being drained away?
Yeah, by this demanding person. He says you won't be able to bear it for 3 days. You will break.
Because the ego can't handle it.
But if you can enter a state of selflessness, you simply won't feel annoyed. He actually writes that without a self, you will appreciate a different kind of scenery in this world.
Which sounds impossible until you break it down.
Right. You can just be fully present with the reality of the situation without your ego constantly screaming about how it's being wronged.
It's about letting go of the narrative of poor me.
The story we tell ourselves.
Yes. When you drop the narrative, you are just left with the task. Changing a bedsheet is just changing a bedsheet. Feeding someone is just feeding someone.
It's just actions.
Right. The suffering doesn't come from the physical action. The suffering comes from the ego's resistance to the action.
The gap between how things are and how the ego thinks they should be.
Exactly. And Xu Feng builds on this idea of how the self completely distorts our physical reality with a final, very extreme thought experiment.
Oh boy, here we go.
This is where he proves how the ego literally invents the rules of the world we live in.
Oh man, the toilet water test.
Yes, the toilet water test.
This is the part of the essay that really made me sit back and examine my own brain. Xu asks a very direct question.
He really goes for the gross out factor.
He does. He asks, would you be willing to clean toilets every day? And further, would you dare to take water out of a clean toilet to wash your face and brush your teeth?
It is a brilliant hypothetical because it is designed to bypass your intellect and provoke an immediate involuntary reaction.
And it absolutely does. You read that and your whole body recoils. Like, gross, absolutely not, never.
Right, the disgust is instant.
But he doesn't let you off the hook. He forces you to look at why you are recoiling. He starts by stating there is no essential difference between cleaning a toilet and sweeping an emperor's throne.
Which is technically true. Physically, it is just applying friction to a surface to remove dust or grime.
Right.
The difference entirely lies in the hierarchy that your self projects onto those objects.
Exactly. But the water example is what really blew my mind. Let's really visualize this for a second.
Okay, set the scene.
Imagine a freshly manufactured, perfectly clean porcelain toilet bowl right out of the box from the hardware store.
Completely sterile.
Right. You install it and you fill it with water. That water sitting in the bowl is the exact same pure H2O flowing from your bathroom tap.
Literally identical water.
But if someone asked you to cup your hands and splash that bowl water on your face, you would be incredibly disgusted.
Of course.
The essay points out that our disgust has absolutely nothing to do with the actual water quality. It's entirely because of the presence of the self.
The labels again.
Yes. The human mind's labeling system is so incredibly powerful that we literally hallucinate a reality where pure water becomes dirty simply because of the shape of the ceramic holding it.
Having form is due to having a self. That is the key phrase Xu Feng uses to explain this phenomenon.
It's so profound.
It is. The ego, the self, is the mechanism that categorizes the entire world into these rigid binary boxes.
Clean versus dirty.
High versus low, the emperor's seat versus the toilet bowl. We spend our whole lives trapped inside these categories, stressing ourselves out to make sure we always align with the high and the clean.
We let a shape dictate our reality.
Precisely. The essay is showing us that these boundaries are completely artificial. They are mirages generated by the ego.
Wow.
If you remove the self, those boundaries instantly collapse. You don't see a toilet and a tap. You just see water. You just see a task to be done.
It's incredibly liberating when you really grasp the mechanics of it. You realize how much massive, exhausting energy you spend every single day maintaining the illusion of the toilet versus the tap.
Or the powerful boss versus the lowly subordinate.
Exactly. It's all just made up by the ego.
Yeah.
So, okay, what does this all mean? How does Xu Feng tie all these diverse threads, from the peak physical experiences to the Nobel Prizes to the selfish coworker to the toilet water? How does he bring this all together into a final thesis?
Well, he concludes by rapidly contrasting two entirely different ways of experiencing human existence, placing them side by side.
Okay.
It serves as a stark, uncompromising summary of the entire philosophy. If you choose to live with the self, he says, life is a cruel competition. It is a perpetual battle.
Which sounds exhausting.
It is. Everything you encounter appears as a struggle for profit or a threat to your status. You tend toward the lower realms of life, surrounded by thorns and traps, constantly feeling in danger.
Just constantly on guard.
Right. And crucially, with a self, you look up at the world.
Let's explore that phrasing for a second. Looking up at the world. Meaning, you're always operating from a place of perceived inferiority or lack.
Yes.
You are always trying to climb a ladder, always feeling like the world is heavier and larger than you are.
Exactly. You are crushed by the weight of the hierarchy you've invented.
That makes sense.
But contrast that with living without a self. In that state of selflessness, Xu Feng argues life ceases to be a battle and becomes an interesting journey.
A journey.
Everything appears as a fun game. You naturally move toward the higher realms of life. Instead of thorns and traps, there are clear skies and bright prospects everywhere.
Because nothing can actually threaten your true self.
Exactly. And without a self, he says, you look down on the world.
And just to clarify, because this could be misinterpreted, he doesn't mean looking down in an arrogant, condescending way.
No.
He means looking down like you are soaring above it. Like you finally have a detached, wide-angle, bird's-eye perspective on the maze that everyone else is stuck running through.
Right. You're above the maze.
You aren't trapped in the maze anymore because you finally stopped pretending you were the mouse.
That is the perfect analogy. You are observing the game rather than desperately trying to win it.
It's a profound shift in perspective. And for you listening right now, while you might not be ready to go wash your face out of a toilet bowl tomorrow morning.
Which, let's be honest, is totally fair.
Yeah, probably for the best.
Right.
But the underlying mechanics of this philosophy are so deeply applicable to normal life.
Absolutely.
Like, you can take this into your very next frustrating budget meeting or the next time you are stuck in terrible gridlock traffic.
Oh, traffic is the ultimate test.
Right. Instead of raging against the situation, you can try, just for 10 seconds, to drop the ego that feels personally insulted by the delay. Just turn off the static and see what the landscape actually looks like without it.
And to really put this into practice, I'd like to leave you with a final thought experiment based on Shui Feng's essay.
Oh, I love a good thought experiment.
Think of one specific ongoing conflict in your life right now where you feel like you are surrounded by those thorns and traps.
Okay.
A situation that feels like a cruel, exhausting battle. It could be a family dispute, a difficult client, a personal insecurity.
Everyone has at least one of those.
Definitely. If you completely dropped yourself from that exact equation tomorrow morning, if you entirely stopped calculating your own gains, losses, and desperate need for validation in that specific scenario.
Just remove your surface.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How would the landscape of that conflict instantly change? What actually happens to the battle when you simply refuse to show up for it?
Man, that is a brilliant question to sit with. Sometimes the absolute only way to win the game is to realize you don't have to play it.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next time to unpack another fascinating topic.